This is the first time that I know that Nigeria, they are doing budget.
No, I don't know anything about Nigeria budget.
I dey hear about budget, big million, but I no dey see anything.
It's a game of kalo. The more you look, the less you see.
We are not involved, so I don't know anything. Nobody is carrying us along.
I don't know anything about Nigeria budget because I'm not in the field.
Sometimes we just hear on the TV that the budget has been released, maybe June, sometime June. Sometime, in fact, towards the end of the year. So I can't even understand them. I don't even know what is going on. All we know that we are in Nigeria.
I don't bother myself about story, bother myself about reality. So that's why I don't bother. I decide to do my own thing.
In Nigeria, governments at different levels make budgets every year. That's standard practice. Over the years, the values of these budgets have been on the increase as governments continually promise development and a better life for citizens. The focus of this film will be on the federal government since it gets the bulk share of Nigeria's revenue. The federal budget has increased from 667.7 billion naira in 1999 to 4.877 trillion naira in 2012. This means that as at 2012, the federal budget has increased more than 7 times over in 13 years. Big number, very, very big number. But what are these big figures meant to achieve? Are they big for nothing? Is the annual budget important at all?
I think it's important for us to know that the budget is probably the most important tool of governance, because the budget is what specifies the directions in which resources that are available will be put to use. It demonstrates what we give priority to as a people.
For development, therefore, presumes that in a disciplined manner, we are applying the mind to determining what our development goals are, what resources need to go into making them achieved, and how to cost effectively deploy those resources so that the outcome best advances the common good of all who are the targets of development.
To bring about development, governments have to utilize resources, and the budgets outline how these resources are to be utilized. Nigeria is home to over 170 million people, by far the most populous African country with vast human and natural resources. The 13th biggest oil-producing nation in the world and the second largest economy in Africa. With an average of 7.4% growth over the last 10 years, Nigeria is one of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world. This seems to justify the national budgets over the years, doesn't it?
Our history of budget making has been severely impacted by 30 years of military rule. And during that period, budgets are simply numbers written by the government and called a budget. And when you look at government expenditures, there is often very little relationship between the numbers written and how monies are actually allocated and spent.
I don't think that the budgets of Nigeria are delivered to develop anything, to bring any results. I've been working on these budgets for the past 5-6 years now. It's like there's a standard, a permanent template for you remove the figures of last year and then put another one in the headings. I've told people in my constituency never to expect anything from the budgets of Nigeria, because the budgets are not about changing anything. It's about standard fare, about a tradition that, the public service needs to run on every year in, year out.
We lag behind very, very badly on almost any human development indicator as a country. And so to talk about Nigeria growing at 7% is meaningless when people have no water, no access to clean water, no access to hospitals, no access to the basics of life.
A budget that does not do anything for education that we can see is no budget. A budget that does not help us with healthcare is no budget. A budget that still cannot rectify the electrical problem is no budget. So of course there is a budget, but how many of us fill the budget? There is a budget put aside always to solve the electrical problem, and year after year they give us an excuse why we still have no electricity, and they keep promising us the year after.
It's about coming together with one voice and, saying, hey, we heard this is supposed to happen. Why is it not happening like this? For me as an individual, I use my music to also do that kind of findings. I can say, oh, wait, these people said they'll give us steady light by 2010. This is the 31st of 2009, and I don't think it's going to be done overnight. So I said, when we ask our government, when they go give us light, they say now 2010. We don't wait 2010 since then, but now we waiting must end, cause 2010 don't show.
When we ask our government, when they go give us light, them say now 2010. We don't wait 2010 since then, but now we waiting must end, cause 2010 don't show.
The number of Nigerians living in poverty is increasing significantly, revealing a perplexing contrast between the nation's economic statistics on rapid economic growth and minimal welfare improvements for much of the population. The number of poor Nigerians living beneath the poverty line has grown measurably. That is according to the World Bank in its Nigeria Economic Report released in May of 2013. But that's not all. Nigeria is ranked 153rd out of 186 countries in the 2013 United Nations Human Development Index. And Nigerians are feeling the pinch.
But we have a problem that is a predicament to our business, most especially the light issue. If there is no light, there will be no business. It's like last year, electricity supply is more better than that of this year, because this is how they have been playing with our imaginations, tricking us.
I know that government, they normally promise they will create jobs, build houses, school, and electricity, but, well, I can't really tell. I have not seen any of this, because I think they are not doing their work. They are not doing the right thing.
In this zone we are, nothing. We have seen nothing. We are just suffering here. We are dying here.
They are not sharing it, as in they are just putting it within their family. And it's not supposed to be like that, because we are all voting for them. And we are the people that put them on the throne. So they're supposed to do what we want.
Like we living in the slums here, I don't even see ourselves as being in the map, because we don't get anything from the, we don't enjoy anything from wherever the budget is bringing up. But when I go outside here, I see changes. I may like the changes outside there, but I'm not directly affected since I'm neglected here.
Look into my eyes, we are ready for you. When I see what my children may face, the voice of the waiting man. Yes, the voice has been called. They are waiting for food, they are waiting for what.
You see, one basic thing as a leader is you should be somebody that if you say something, you mean it. In Islam, that is why Quran said, "Lima taquluna ma la taf'alun." Why do you say what you are not doing? Why should you say what you know that you are not going to do? Whenever one is making budget, whatever he said and he stated, except if there is deficit which may be caused by some certain unexpected things that may come, that one is the work of God, not just, can I say, deliberate attempt that, no, I don't want this, I want the other way.
So how did we get it so wrong? Why haven't our ever-increasing budgets over the years brought about the desired impact? One of the problems identified is that the budgets in recent years are usually late. Very late. The lateness in the passing of our budgets has been identified as a major problem.
In the more recent past, the budgets have actually come almost midway into the year, which makes it worse because it means that you run a government for half of a year outside of the budget. And then because the rules of accountability require that unspent portions of the monies appropriated, even if released, must be returned, then it means that you actually do not have the full implementation of the budget. So it's like for half of the year, we run like on one limb. And then it means that we have only 6 months to implement the budget.
It is not like rocket science. It's not a miracle. It's possible. But it is because there's no commitment on the part of the executive, first of all, to bring the budget to the National Assembly on time. Because it comes late, and the National Assembly take their time too, it also comes out of the legislative mill late.
We have had these fights. It started before, since 1999. The executive, which has its overwhelming power, says that you have to approve the budgets the way it's been brought by the president. And National Assembly says, no, we can rewrite the budget anyhow, any way we can, as done in other countries.
The country has become caught up in the bargaining process for the approval of budgets, so that you find that projects are thrown in, not because they have potentials for benefiting Nigerians, but because they become avenues for seeking to maximize resources for specific constituencies. Particularly, I think we must, if we want to really make impact, come back as a nation and focus on this whole constituency project saga. Nobody will quarrel with the concept of let us have at the constituency level projects, so that there are at least projects that spread around the country. But the way constituency projects have emanated, some of them are not even defined. They are not planned, and therefore they are not really executed. And we must be careful that the role of the legislature in appropriation and all that must be carefully separated from the execution of those projects.
There's also the issue of the imbalance between recurrent and capital expenditure. Recurrent expenditure is made up of payments for people on the government's payroll and the cost of running the government, while capital expenditure is to implement projects and develop infrastructure that affect the general population. In the last 5 years, the allocation given to capital expenditure, that's the bit that affects you and me directly, don't forget, has been less than 30% of the annual budget. Just think about it. If development is the actual target of our budgets, how come the amount set aside for running government is much more than the amount spent to affect the general population?
In the last couple of years, in the last 2 years, when Madam Okonjo-Iweala came in, she's saying, let's reverse it, let's increase capital expenditure. Last year, they said it was supposed to be 28%. This year, they're talking about 30 or thereabout. But the bottom line, beyond what they write on the paper, last year was supposed to be 28%. They spent about 51% of the money, or they spent roughly about 660-something billion out of 1.32 billion. So they did about 51%. So if you bring that further, you discover at the end of the day it comes up to about 14% or thereabout. And if you disaggregate that even percentage further for corruption and leakages, you may discover it becomes single digit. So as of today, what we are doing in this country is to use the bulk of the money that we earn from all sources to pay salaries and run recurrent expenditure.
Most government departments, MDAs, are anxious to put into their own capital budget those things that are purchase related, because it is easy to spend. Let me give you an example. we're dealing with a government agency. I got into an office of one of the people, high budget people in that agency. And there was a carton of unopened computer on top of a cupboard. There was one that was like a footstool somewhere. And yet, in the budget proposals they were making, there were computers. And I said, but why do you need computers? Then he said, oh no, that one up there was the one I got from last year's budget. Oh, the one on the ground is the one from the previous year's budget. So it is a routine, and those are not development oriented. So, but yet it is part of the capital budget.
So you must buy furniture every year in an office. You must buy computers for an office every year, which doesn't happen in the private sector. It doesn't happen. But in the public sector budget, it's like that. There must be purchases, there must be procurement that are made because somebody has to spend money to procure them, to keep the cycle of procurement, revolving and running to the advantage of some people.
However you look at it, there are certain things about the budgets that raise eyebrows, and if they don't, they should, shouldn't they? Let's consider security votes, for instance.